When I got started in this space, the things that attracted me were that it's a digital based business. I thought that I would be able to sell something and move on and never see that person again. I thought it was gonna be like turnkey, very easy. I thought that sales would be easy. And some of that is true. You can make a lot of money really fast. You can streamline the business, you can automate the business, but there are a lot of truths inside of this space that I don't think a lot of people realize. And it really hurts their chances of becoming successful inside of this space. So if you're a course creator and you want to see or hear the 5 truths that I've discovered after building a multi-million dollar business inside of the digital course creator space, well, this episode is perfect for you. So keep on listening. Hi, I'm Brandon Lucero, and you're about to experience the new way to thrive in business, entrepreneurship, and life by leaning into who you are, what you love, and standing up for what you want to create. Get ready, because this is where we go against the grain, say no to outdated society norms, and we say yes to change in order to create a happier, more fulfilled world. Welcome to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Today, we're going to talk about 5 truths about the course creator, program creator, I guess service provider space, this whole online marketing space. I see time and time again people coming into the space, and I think there is this misconception that this business is very easy. And there are a lot of great benefits to this business, but there are some truths that I don't think people really fully grasp or realize. So we are in the process of looking at other potential businesses to either buy or to start locally here in Arizona. And I want to kind of expand our portfolio of businesses and investments. And so I'm kind of looking through a lot of these businesses, and it's very interesting. I think people just label business as business, but one of the things that we're looking at is either starting or buying a coffee shop. And that style of business is so much different than this business here, where there isn't so much that you need to necessarily do on the back end of fulfillment. It's like they come in, they buy their product, and then they kind of leave. But the course-based business is and the service-based business is totally different. It's kind of like someone comes in and they make a purchase, but then there's this whole other side of fulfillment. But on the flip side, the course-based business is also very low investment to get started, where some of these other businesses, it's like high investment. You got to buy or rent a place. You have to build it out. I mean, it literally could cost you like $100,000, $200,000 just to start a local based business, whereas an online business, you don't. So it's just kind of crazy how the businesses are so different. And you have to take all of this stuff into account. And I've been in this business probably since 2013, actually before that, 2012, maybe even 2011. I'm trying to go back. I mean, if you look way back to when I was doing like SEO and niche based sites and having AdSense on the sites, probably 2011. I learned SEO long time ago. So I've been in this online space for a really long time, and I've been selling courses for at least 8 years and having programs and things like that. And I've learned and I've seen a lot of things. I've seen a lot of people come and I've seen a lot of people go. I've seen a lot of people develop audiences and sales really fast, sometimes even up to that 7-figure mark that everyone tries to get to. And then they're gone within a year or two. We've seen that multiple times. And so I've kind of seen these cycles and these trends after being in this space for so long, that I want to go through 5 different truths that I've seen inside of this space. And some of them are good and some of them are bad. Now, none of them are really designed to, put fear in you or worry or anything. That's the opposite of what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to prepare you guys, or maybe there's areas that you weren't aware of or you didn't know to focus on, that hopefully this episode will get you to focus on. I'm going to go through these 5 truths, and remember, there is no right, wrong. There is no good or bad when it comes to these things. It just is what it is. And hopefully you can kind of figure out where to put your focus when it comes to this type of business. And maybe you realize like, wow, I don't really want to do a course-based business or whatever it may be. And you move on to a different style of business. And I think a lot of people come into this space thinking that this is going to be super easy. It's like I sell a product and then I deliver it and then I'm done. It's very turnkey, low cost. And again, like I said, there's a lot of benefits to it, but there's also a lot more that goes into this business than I think people know. And so what I want to do is start with number one, which is number one is marketing and sales are all generated on your own. And what this means is that we don't get the benefit of a good location. We don't get the benefit of plopping down into a high traffic area and then all of a sudden getting customers. When we have a coffee shop or we have a restaurant or we have barbershop or whatever it may be, is you can literally get business just by choosing a very good location. That's why we always say, look, you hear that saying of location is everything or whatever. Everyone always talks about location. And that's because you can have people into high traffic shopping centers. Like if you picked a shopping center that had one like major anchor point store, like a Vons or a Whole Foods or a Trader Joe's or something that people just like a grocery store that people are gonna be going to, and you plop yourself down into that shopping center, like you already have eyeballs on your stuff. You have great signage. Look, you have foot traffic already coming by, already coming in. The thing with this online space is you have to understand we don't get the luxury of having high traffic areas that people just walk by where we can just choose a location and we have free traffic. It very rarely happens. Like you could argue there's going to be things like you can get onto someone's podcast and take their online traffic, or go to YouTube and you get people going there and you can take their traffic. But even going to YouTube, like you got to rank your videos. You got to do work to do it. You know, just don't start a YouTube channel, then all of a sudden get traffic. Same thing with getting on someone's podcast, and that's short lived as well. You get on their podcast, you might get a little burst and maybe a trickle for the next few months, but that doesn't stay there. When you have an offline business, a brick and mortar, and you're in a good location, like you just constantly have traffic and eyeballs on your stuff. That doesn't happen in the online space. And so what we have to understand is in this online space, you need to generate everything. You're going to be the person generating the traffic. Not only do you generate the traffic, but we have products that need conversion. And so again, if you're going into like a coffee-based business, like a coffee shop or a restaurant or a cafe or a barber shop, no one's walking in and then needs to be sold on your product. They walk in because you're in a high traffic area. They see coffee, they want a coffee. They see a restaurant, they want food. It looks good. They come in. You don't need to convince them to buy something. But with the online space, you literally have to do both of those. You have to generate traffic, and then you actually have to make sure that that traffic converts. And that's, to be honest with you, a pretty difficult task for most. And I would say that's the biggest problem with that a lot of people are experiencing inside of the space is they don't know how to generate traffic and they don't know how to convert the traffic. And that leads me to the second point of this truth is that you have to be a great marketer inside the space. I mean, you really do. This is a space where the most expert, the most knowledgeable, the best expert, the person with the best program doesn't always win. Again, with coffee, with restaurants, there's still a lot of things that go into those, but generally if you have a good product, people will come. And you know, there's a coffee shop here in town that's actually a pretty terrible location, but they have the best coffee in town. So that's where my wife and I go because they have the best product. Having the best product doesn't mean that you're going to make it inside the space. And we see amazing experts with amazing products that go out of business or never make any sales. In fact, I have clients of ours in our NGM program who are amazing at what they do, but are struggling getting sales. And that's why they're in our program to help them with their messaging. So you have to be a great marketer. And what I see a lot of times is I actually see a pretty big trend, especially since COVID has happened, a big trend of offline businesses trying to go online. So it could be like a yoga instructor who had a studio trying to go and start online classes now. And I've seen, in fact, some of the businesses we've been looking at did exactly that. They have an online aspect to part of their offline business. And, you know, another example could be like you're a therapist and you don't want to have in-person patients anymore. You want to have online people going through a program. So you're not dealing one-on-one with clients anymore. So we see that a lot. But again, the problem is it doesn't matter how good you are. And that's hard for people to understand. And it's actually frustrating for a lot of people because you see people that aren't as good as you or smart as you or have as much of mastery over the craft as you do, but you see them making more sales, you see them being more successful. And sometimes we see people with really crappy products selling a lot. And yeah, it sucks. It's not fun, but it's the truth. And it's because they're great marketers. They understand how to sell. They understand who they're marketing to. They understand language. They understand messaging. They understand copy. They understand how to communicate in order to get someone to buy, to do something. And in order to have that happen, you have to deeply know who you're going after specifically. You have to understand what their problem are, and then you have to pick the problem that they are willing to pay for to get solved. And you have to understand the mistakes that are causing those problems, and you have to understand the mistakes they're using to try to fix those problems that don't work. You just have to have a very good understanding where you can describe it so detailed and so deeply and so perfectly that when they hear you talk, they're like, oh my God, it's me. They're speaking to me. And what happens is when we are very, very good at our craft, we sometimes get detached or disconnected from who we're marketing to, and we forget what it's like to be them in their shoes, what's causing their problems. And we get so used to having this deep knowledge that we almost kind of forget how to speak and market to the person that is someone we can help. And I have someone I'm working one-on-one with right now, and that's been part of their problem. It's been part of their issue, is that when they first started out, they were the person they now sell to, but they have seen so much success that they completely lost what it was like to be that person again, and they become unrelatable. And so what we have to do is pop ourselves out of this knowledge bubble and put ourselves back into the spot to know exactly who we're going after and not go after everyone, what they're dealing with, what is the problems they have, but which problem is the one they're willing to pay to get fixed. What's causing the problem? What are they doing to try to fix the problem? Doesn't work. We just have to have such a deep, deep knowledge of that person. And that will be the first step to becoming a really great marketer. In addition to that, we also have to understand when it comes to marketing and sales is there's two sides of the equation here. Actually, there's a couple different sides. We have organic and we have paid, which are both completely different. Organic is less of a direct response type of marketing. Paid traffic is a much more direct response sort of marketing, but they also should be working together. In order to become a great marketer, you have to understand the journey and where people are at in that journey. You have to understand the intention of what you're doing. Every piece affects something else in the funnel. The ad's going to affect the effectiveness of your webinar, and they should be working together. We should be prepping people for the webinar and our ads while getting them to convert. And so we kind of want to focus on both of those things. And that leads me to the next things we have to understand is that content should be creating demand, and it should also be building your audience. The way I like to look at content is that when we focus on demand creation on a subconscious level, we actually get audience growth as a byproduct. And I think a lot of people look at their content as purely just audience growth, and that's the intention. Just grow my audience, grow my audience. Well, I like to look at content as how do I create demand? How do I build trust? How do I build connection? And when I can focus on that, and how do I add value in different ways besides just delivering information? And when I do that, my audience actually grows. It's a byproduct. But we also need direct response content too. And so again, this all comes down to you need to understand marketing and sales. Can you rely on referrals? Maybe. I mean, maybe. I'm sure that's possible. But referral business is not controllable growth or scaling. You can't do that. You can't control how much it is. You can't say, okay, cool, I need customers. I'm going to run a campaign and pump out some money or sales. You can't do that. So when it comes down to this style of business, what you have to realize, the first truth is you absolutely need to be a great marketer. And that includes messaging. And in fact, messaging is the foundation of great marketing. Messaging is great marketing. And we also need to understand sales. Okay. So, and again, there's two sides. There's this ongoing content that's kind of your organic stuff. And then you also need direct response, which is going to be like your ads or even your social content that's like, hey, opt in, opt in, opt in. So we need both, but you have to understand. And again, this is kind of a hard truth for some of you. It doesn't matter how good you are. It matters how good you can market and sell your stuff. I do believe that you will need a good product and you do need to be knowledgeable. And I actually believe that in order to be a great marketer, you need to be incredibly knowledgeable and have a ton of experience and really you need mastery over your craft. So in order to be a great marketer, you do need to be one of the best experts out there because you just have a deeper understanding of who you're going after. And again, a lot of people that don't get this right are the ones who are usually are teaching from knowledge. They're teaching from their degrees and regurgitating information, stuff like that, which means that your product's not going to be as good as someone else who has mastery, and your marketing's not going to be as good as someone who's going to have mastery. But you'll still do okay. But you got to understand when we have mastery over our craft, we also have better marketing because we understand who we're going after, their problems, their thoughts, their emotions. We can describe their specific situations way better than anyone else. But then we also become better teachers because we've discovered other things that other people haven't discovered, which means we can teach things that other people can't teach. Okay. So mastery really is the key or the starting point of great marketing and sales. Okay. Number two, the second truth is that the product, especially with a digital course business, digital product business, the product is a very easily deliverable, which is amazing. We don't get a deliverable as great as this one in any other business that I'm aware of, but it's not an easy fulfillment. So it's an easy deliverable, but it's not always an easy fulfillment. So let me talk about what I mean here. I think what attracts a lot of people into this space is that they think, okay, cool, it's an online course, it's a digital product. They can just download it and then I'm done. And although there's truth in that, like you could have like maybe your business is built off of $47 PDFs or training videos that people get and they have no calls, no questions, and there's nothing for you to fulfill on. That'd be very easy fulfillment. But a lot of us have higher ticket stuff or even a low ticket thing that still needs questions or give people an opportunity to ask questions, or you have a community, which means that the fulfillment becomes harder. So for us, we have a whole department just for after the sale. Because yeah, the deliverable is easy. Someone buys something, the software gives them automatic login to training videos and downloads. But the fulfillment becomes hard because I still have to coach them. I still have to answer questions. I also need to look at those training videos and those PDFs to see how effective they are, where are people dropping off. I need to update it once or twice a year, which is a pretty big task. It takes a really long time to update our program because it's so intensive, but I also need to know what to update, what's working, what's not working. And so the fulfillment of all of this stuff is incredibly hard, especially if you're going to go high ticket. In fact, just last week, we had 5 of our coaches, plus myself, plus Julie, who runs the after the sale department for us. We call it customer experience. On a call, just figuring out how we want to structure the calls. Because if you join our NGM Plus program, you get one-on-one calls, and we're kind of evolving the program. So we had an hour-long discussion with 6 people on how to structure the 5 one-on-one calls. What's going to get the best result? How is this going to flow? How is this going to make sense? How is this going to jive with the program? And I remember sitting on that call going like, man, I thought this business was supposed to be easy. Like you just buy it and they leave. But we care about the results. We care about what's going to get the best result. And again, this goes, part of the best marketing and sales is like, how big of results can you get for people? What's the result ratio? How many results are people getting? How big are the results people getting? And that's going to help with your marketing, and that's going to help with your sales. But I don't think a lot of people really understand that, as this whole fulfillment side of the course-based business is its own job in itself. And as you grow and as you scale, that will become a department that you're going to want to focus on. So for us, we personally have things like customer support wrapped into that. We have courses, the course design wrapped into that, the course results wrapped into that. We have processes for getting testimonials, processes for getting case studies, processes for answering questions. We have processes for when the calls get scheduled, how they get scheduled, how the recordings get uploaded into the system. So for most of us, making the sale is not a set and forget. Making the sale is when like a lot of the actual work really begins. And when we look at like a restaurant, or we look at a coffee shop, or we look at a barber shop, you come in, you get the thing that you came in for, you made the sale. there's very little fulfillment on their end. Like they either cut your hair 30 minutes or maybe a couple hours if you're doing a big thing, but you come in, you get a cup of coffee at a coffee shop, or you go to a restaurant, you get the food, the fulfillment's done. You pay, it's done, you're out. They don't have to worry about anything. Sure, they might get some customer service, things coming up. But for us in our program, like you're with us in NGM Plus, you're with us for 6 months. So I have 6 months worth of fulfillment. It's not like you come in, you buy my program, and then you walk back home and then you never hear from me again. No, we're here to deliver results. That takes time. That takes focus. That takes dedication, both on you and me. And so you have to understand is that the product, yes, it's easily deliverable, meaning they can either download or get an automatic login, but the fulfillment is sometimes not easy. And if you mess up the fulfillment and people get wind that your fulfillment is all messed up, then and word gets out that the product's not good, there's no support, there's the results aren't really there, then it's going to hurt your business. Okay. So again, we have things like customer support, we have the actual experience, we have results. What is the results that people are getting? Are they getting results? How do we improve the results ratio? And so it's a full-time process. Like I said, just last week, we had at least 6 people spending it could have been over an hour. We had to end the call at an hour because I had another call, but we probably could have gone an hour and a half just talking about how to structure 5 one-on-one calls inside of the back-end process. And the one-on-one calls are just one aspect of what we do. And not only after the discussion, now we have to put it into place. We have to build out a system. We have to build out a process. We got to get things scheduled. We got to figure out how it's going to work. And then we're going to put it to test, and we're going to find out that it doesn't necessarily work the way we thought it does. And we're going to have to come back and we're going to have to adjust it. And so it is a very heavy system and process based business, from on a delivery and fulfillment aspect. Okay. Number 3 is that this space changes really fast. And so you have to be adaptable. I think the world is just changing really fast right now in general. I think the way coffee shops were run, and I keep using the coffee shop example because it's a business I really want to start soon. But again, in any business and the way technology is working, there's a lot of like delivery services now. A lot of these places have their own app system. You can call in and place orders. There's like, because of COVID, walk out to the car sort of things, and may not seem like a big deal, but it's all a new system. It's all a new process that you have to integrate. Even in those styles of business, those brick and mortar style businesses, there's a lot changing. But because this is a technology based business, there's a lot of changes happening really fast inside of this space. So to give you an idea of what I'm talking about, I remember 8 years ago, when I got started, I was teaching YouTube, and I understood YouTube like the back of my hand back then. And then I got to a point where I just didn't enjoy it anymore. I didn't want to do that anymore. So I moved on to what we do today. But at the point when I'm trying to make is that I understood YouTube. I knew exactly what to do. I knew how the algorithm worked. I knew how to rank videos. I knew how to do the call to actions. There was no guessing. It just made sense. And it was like super, super easy. And I was just talking to James Wedmore the other day, one of my pals. And, him and I were like talking about, we're like, man, we're kind of on the brink of becoming the old guys. We've been around for a really long time. And we're kind of like lost in this like sea of everything going on. And what I mean by this is like, you look around, and back then when we got started, it was like Instagram was maybe just getting started. Facebook was kind of a thing. Facebook ads were kind of a thing. We've seen a lot of things come and go. Snapchat came and go. What was that other one? It started with a P. What the heck was it called? It was like this talking app. Gosh, what the heck was it? I can't remember. Clubhouse. Yeah, it didn't start with a P. It was Clubhouse came and went. But now we have TikTok, and it's like the way that, we also look at the way people consume content, and that has completely changed too. It's like these quick 15-second, 30-second little reels and TikToks and things that, like, I personally don't understand. I like to the level of how I understood YouTube. I understood YouTube like the back of my hand. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It was like, cool, this is what you need to do. Go do it over and over again. It's working. With TikTok, I'm like, okay, let's try this. We're in that experimental phase of like, okay, we need to figure this out. And if I don't figure it out, or we don't, figure out what to do here, are potentially just going to get left behind. And so we're kind of having to adapt and we're going to have to change. But even then, we've seen so many things come up as well. Like when I first got started, using challenges as a way to sell your products didn't exist. Paid workshops weren't really a thing. Live launches weren't really a thing. Video series were a thing. Webinars were a thing. It's kind of how people sold most of their stuff back then. And a lot of even that webinars haven't really changed too much. And they, to be honest with you, they probably should, because the methods that were taught back then don't necessarily work. But we've also seen things like Facebook ads being really cheap and then all of a sudden having rising ad costs. We've seen, like I said, new methods come and go. And so there's going to be a new platform at some point that pops up, and there's going to be platforms that die off, like Snapchat, that people don't really use anymore. And so this space changes really fast, and it changes a lot faster than brick and mortar type of things change. And I think that's also why a lot of brick and mortars kind of went down during COVID, is they're not used to having to change, critical think, adapt, alter the way they did things. I think sometimes a lot of businesses have just worked for a long time. The owners are kind of out of touch. They're kind of just letting things run, and then a big change happens and then they go out of business or they start losing money. And then you have an opportunity to come in and either acquire the business or take over the business or compete against them or whatever it may be. Because I don't think that a lot of brick and mortar businesses are really ready for change and adaptability. I think a lot of them are really good at the product or creating a great cup of coffee or good food or whatever it may be. And they're not really great marketers. They're not really great. And they don't have to be, because the traffic can come to them, right? And word of mouth can get out, and that's all you really need. But for us, that doesn't really work. So again, let's recap where we're at. The first three truths we covered were that you have to be a great marketer. You have to understand marketing and sales. You have to understand that products are easily deliverable, but they're not as easy of a fulfillment as you may think. So it's not like this set and forget type of thing for most of us. And then things change fast, and you have to be able to adapt to them. And again, it's not really that hard. And really, you don't have to be the one discovering a lot of things. There's so many great experts now you can learn from. So like for me, for example, like if I really wanted to learn TikTok, I could go to the people who've kind of figured it out, take their courses, things like that, and learn, and then experiment and get my own knowing of it. But I don't need to go be the one discovering all of this stuff either. So don't worry about that. Like, I don't want to put fear and worry into you. Like, oh my God, I got to figure it. No, it's just when something comes up, like be flexible and adaptable to it and learn from the people who are exploring that platform so you can take advantage of it. Okay. Number 4, and this is actually a great benefit. As we look through a lot of different local businesses here, I've looked through a few of them that we're interested in buying, and we're looking through their P&Ls, started to realize how grateful I am for this style of business, because you can make money really fast in this business, and you can make a lot of it. You can make a lot of it really fast. And I don't think you can do that with most brick and mortars. Now, the reason why you can't do that with brick and mortars as much is because every location will have a cap of what it can possibly do. Meaning that, let's just say you fully maximize it to be as profitable as it can, you're only going to be able to handle a certain amount of customers. And so like the restaurants are a perfect example of this. They can only seat so many people at a certain time. Coffee shops, you can only serve so many cups of coffee and have so many people in at a certain time. Barbershop, you only have enough stations to cut so many people's hair. Are there things you can do to maximize it, speed it up? Of course. But every location is eventually going to have a cap of the amount of people that it can service. Now, sure, you can try to make more money by raising prices and things like that, but eventually there's going to be some sort of cap. And that's going to require you opening up a second location if you want to expand this business, which means it's going to cost you more money. So this business doesn't cost you more money to expand, and there really isn't any cap. Yeah, depending on your service, there might be, or your business, there might be some sort of cap. Like if you have an agency, you might, in order to expand, you might need to hire and build out bigger systems and processes. If you have a coaching program, there might be certain limits that you might have. But if you have a done for or do it yourself course, like there really is no cap. Like maybe you're gonna have a lot of questions in a Facebook group and you have to hire some coaches to help you answer questions. But really the scalability of this style of business is pretty much unlimited. And so, when we were $40,000 in debt and went from zero to $1 million in sales in 9 months, like that's pretty difficult to do for a brick and mortar. And it didn't cost me any money to have to do that. Like sure I had to put money out for advertising. I hired Taylor back then. So there was some cost, but I didn't have like $100,000 like build out inside of a location. I didn't have to, buy $50,000 worth of product. And when we start looking at these coffee shops, it's like, an espresso machine that can pour 3 espressos at a time, which by the way is the foundation of almost every drink that you can get there besides like a normal coffee. Well, let's just put it this way. Espresso is required for espresso, for lattes, for cortados, for cappuccino. So all these drinks start with espresso. And then you add milk and something like that to make whatever drink you're trying to make. But those machines cost $20,000 to $30,000. I don't have to do that. You don't have to do that inside of this space. And it's actually a good thing and a bad thing. We'll get to that here in a second, but you don't need a lot of investment to get started, and you don't need a lot of investment for expansion. So again, the money can be made really, really fast. And again, this is a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing because you can change your financial situations really, really quickly. But it's also could be a bad thing because if you make money really fast, sometimes you don't know what to do with it or how to manage it. And so you have to have really good money habits inside of this business as well. You also should be taking that money and putting it into other things, other investments and stuff too, instead of just spending it. And that's kind of what I've done. We've put money into real estate. We've put money into different investment accounts and, different things like that. And now into other businesses is what we're looking to do next. But again, the truth about this business is that money can be made fast and it can be made quickly and you can get a lot of it. And expansion is really, really, really easy. So again, you can build literally a multiple seven-figure business relatively quickly, once you figure out how to market and sell and all of that stuff. And you can't really do that with a brick and mortar style of business. Okay. And the fifth truth, which is also a good thing and a bad thing, is that this is very low risk, which is great because you don't have to risk a lot in order to get started. You don't need to do $100,000 build out. You don't need to sign a 5 or 3 year lease, which by the way, if you get an office space or you have some sort of retail based business, the leases is very rare to find a lease that's 1 year. You're likely going to have to sign 3 to 5 years, which means that you're going to have to hope that you're in business for 3 to 5 years. You're going to have to build out the space. So you have to pay rent usually when you're building out the space. If you leave that space, sometimes you're going to have to build it back to the way it was sometimes. So there's a lot of money and a lot of risk involved in actually starting a local based business, a brick and mortar style business. There is a decent amount of risk. Now, I personally think having that risk is a good thing. I think having low risk is one of the reasons why there are people inside the space that never make it, because you're not as committed or dedicated to what it's going to take. So if it costs you $200,000 to start this online business, first of all, would you even do it? And this is a serious question to ask yourself. If you needed to take out a $200,000 loan to start this business, would you even do it? Sadly, the answer for most is no. But if you had to, and you did it, the level of focus, dedication, energy, and work that you would put into it would be 10 times what you're putting in now. And for me, when I got started in this business, that's the way I treated it. Because I had a kid on the way. I was living with my in-laws. I had nothing. And my wife got to the point where she's like, you have 6 months, otherwise you're going to have to go get a job. You don't need to give up on this. You can work on it, on off hours, whatever, but we can't keep living the way we're living. So I had a kid on the way, I had a deadline, and it was do or die. And so my level of dedication went through the roof. And I think because it is low risk, there's a lot of people that are not dedicated enough to take it to the next level. And I see it inside of our programs. Now, I don't want this to come off as arrogant. I don't want this to come off as like I lost touch from reality or whatever, because I remember being broke. I remember building websites for $50. I remember our date nights of getting Little Caesars for $5 hot and readies because that's all we could afford. I remember those things. But our program is for our base level, it's $3,000. And for NGM Plus, it's $8,000. And I know that sounds like a lot of money. Back then, that was and it even is a lot of money still for us. Like if someone said, hey, I'm going to charge you $8,000 for something, I'm like, I'm not going to easily be like, oh yeah, here you go, without any thinking about it. I'm like, is this the right move? Is this the right? It's a lot of money. I totally understand that. But let's just go to the $3,000 price point. I've literally had people tell me that I'm charging too much money for my messaging program that will literally shift the way they communicate, shift their marketing, shift their sales, shift the amount of money they're making, and tell me that I create pricing for my products only for people that are successful already. I'm like, no, no, it's not. $3,000, to be honest with you, for something that's going to help you grow your business is freaking nothing. If you want to start a coffee shop, you're going to have to spend $20,000 on an espresso machine. You're going to have to spend $4, $5, sometimes even $8,000 a month on rent, taking that financial risk. Well, let's just put it this way. Grant Cardone had a quote that I saw the other day that said, most people want more time and they want more money, but most people are not willing to invest more time and more money to make more money and have more time. And it's absolutely the truth. And I think because this space is so easy to start, there are people that are just not doing what it takes. Because if you were to start a local based business and you were to get access to a mentor who was able to help you shift one of the major things that you needed to be shifting, or shift your marketing inside of this business, and you had invested $20,000 in an espresso machine, you spent another $30,000 building it out, and someone's like said, hey, I have experience doing this. I'm one of the best people in the space for doing this. I have a track record of helping a lot of people, and I want $3,000. You're not going to blink an eye. You're not going to sit there and complain about the price and tell them they only charge for people that are successful and da 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 da. No, you're gonna pay the money. And so there's a lot of people, again, I don't want this to come off as I lost touch from reality and how much money that is and all that stuff. I understand. I understand that we're a little bit more expensive than a lot of people out there. Although our NGM Plus price needs to go up. Like we will be, we will be raising that. $8,000 what you get's a little ridiculous. But again, if I'm going back to my point, is that this business is very low risk, which means that people get very used to not taking risks in order to try to grow this business. But this business, if you want to make it, still requires risks in order to make it. So it's very low risk to get started, but people treat it as low risk the entire time they're in this business, and then they never actually make it. It's low risk to get started, and you can get started for free if you wanted to. You could build an audience, you can put out content, you can sell to them, and you can make money without having to put anything in, but you're going to have to take risks at some point. When I go into a launch, we spend sometimes $250,000. That is a risk. That is a $250,000 risk that I am taking to grow this business. When I hired Taylor, I didn't have the money to pay for her, but I hired her and figured it out. Every time we hire someone, or we need to do something, or we need to ad spend money, or we need to do something, I'm putting out risk. I've taken a lot of risk. I've walked off the cliff and hoped the net appeared a lot of times. So I want to be very clear. And this is a big truth inside of this industry, is that it's low risk to get started, but it's not low risk to grow and to scale for most. You're going to have to hire people and pay for things, and you're going to have to put money out hoping that it comes back in, and you might lose it. There's a lot of things that you're going to have to take a risk on. There's going to be points where your revenue is just enough. You might be at 250 or 500,000 and it might be just enough to pay for the current business model, but you need to hire someone or break the business model, and you don't have the funds to do what you need to do, and you're going to have to take that risk. For example, when we were at, I believe it was like 250 a year, it was just enough to pay my personal bills and the bills of the business, but I needed to hire people. I didn't have the money to do that. I didn't have the budget for it, but I did it anyways, because that's what I needed to go to the next level. So again, low risk, easy to start, but you need to be dedicated and understand that you're still going to have to take risks at some point. Any business needs to take risk. You don't get the rewards. You don't get the $1 million launches. You don't get the $1.5 million launches. You don't get the multiple 7 figures a year without ever taking any risks. The bigger the risk, the bigger the reward. Again, easy to get started, but you're going to have to take risks. The nice thing is with this business is you get to learn sometimes before you take the risk. Whereas if you went and took out a $150,000 business loan to start like a coffee shop or whatever it may be, you're going to have to learn on the way after already taking that risk. So those are the truths. The 5 truths again are you need to have great marketing and sales. You need to be a great marketer. Truth number 2 is that the product is easily deliverable, but not always an easy fulfillment. Number 3 is that things change fast and you have to be able to adapt. Number 4 is that money can be made really fast. I think this is the biggest thing that you guys need to take with you, use as motivation and stuff like that, is you're not really capped on what you can do where you are with a lot of brick and mortar based businesses. You guys can make a lot of money. You can make it really quick and you can make it really easily once you master the marketing and the sales and all that good stuff. And then it is low risk, and that could be good and bad. It's low risk to start, but it's not low risk as you continue to grow and as you continue to be in the business. The risks actually start to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Those are the 5 truths that I've uncovered over the last 10 or 8 years or however long I've been in the space. That I don't think a lot of people realize, but they're good things to kind of keep in the back of your mind. Now, depending where you are in your business, you may not need to worry about a lot of these things. For example, the fulfillment side, you don't need a full team. You don't need a lot of that stuff just getting started. In fact, you should probably be focusing on just selling your program first and then worrying about the fulfillment later and fine tuning the fulfillment. And as you fine tune the fulfillment, you get to raise your prices and things like that. There's all good things to kind of keep in mind. But with that being said, if you have any questions, let us know. Let me know how you like this episode. And like always, if you have not left us a review on iTunes, please go do that now. I'd be so grateful. And thank you guys for listening to this episode. Hopefully it helped you out. And that's it. I'll see you on the next one. Hey guys, thank you so much for checking out another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, go below, hit the subscribe button, and make sure you click on that bell icon and get notified every time we drop a new episode. Now, if you're looking for the show notes, we have them linked underneath this video, as well as our social media handles and some links to free training and offers that we drop from time to time to help you guys even further. So go check those out if you're interested. And thank you so much for tuning in to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast.